there, yoga lovers. Welcome to Talk Yoga to Me. We're thrilled to have you with us today as we dive into all things yoga. Whether you're on the mat, in your car, or just relaxing at home, we're here to chat about poses, philosophy, teaching tips, and so much more. So go ahead, roll out your mat, take a deep breath, and let's get started. Talk yoga to me.
Happily. So today we're talking about creating a personal brand. Branding might sound a little intimidating or even out of place in the yoga world, but it's really about being authentic and consistent with how you present yourself. In this episode, we'll break down what it means to have a personal brand and how it can help you connect to with your students both on and off the mat. So, Jimmy, what is a personal brand?
An Instagram handle? Is it? No. A personal brand is basically a messaging, a way of messaging your values, messaging to the people that you are hoping to come in contact with um, for whatever you're trying to sell, which sucks to say it in that weird way, but it's essentially that. But it needs to be something that doesn't come across as selling, it needs to come across as authentic to who you are as a person. And a personal brand guides people who don't know about you
Mm-hmm.
to learn a little bit more and want to, if that works for them and is something that they're looking for, then they want to learn more, and whether that be come to your class, buy your product, whatever you're trying to get out of it. But that's my overview, right? But Allison, how do you view a personal brand as far as like its importance as a yoga teacher?
Personal brand is important because it is your first appearance to the people who see you without actually meeting you in person, right? It is going to be the way that you come across, and it's going to be kind of who you are as a teacher. Um, we work with a lot of yoga teachers, so we're all vastly different. And we can kind of come up with this idea of having a personal brand as what it is that we enjoy, what it is we like to do, and what it is we want to share with you, right?
Yeah.
That's a fair statement. So, I mean, there's the personal brand that I try to share via my Instagram handle, and then there's the personal brand that I have when I'm present at the studio. I think I'm pretty well known for being a challenging vinyasa teacher when it comes to who I am at the studio. And then when I think about what I want to do online, I'm like, I really want to focus on like mindfulness and just like romanticizing your whole life. The little things are the big things type thing, and living your yoga off the mat. So I think about it in that way. Sometimes those are things where I'm like, I do this because I want people to come to my class. Please, I love you. Please show up and help me teach you. Or it's just kind of getting out there and being like, hey, if we all just did yoga, the world would be a better
Yeah.
place. um, so it's important because it's kind of like that idea, like you eat with your eyes before you eat your food, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you see a teacher, something about the way they present themselves attracts you to go to their class for the first time, and then you get to teach and lead from there. So that can also be kind of uncomfortable for new teachers, but I'm sure we'll get into that in just a little bit. So, what do you think the key elements of a personal brand for a yoga teacher are and should be?
Yeah, I think being authentic is key, and you don't want to be imitating someone else. It's about you attracting people to who you are. So being authentic, setting a tone that matches the way you are in person. But I think it also can enhance people who already know you as well. Like, yeah, you teach powerful vinyasa classes, but you're also a very grounding presence in your studio time as a teacher, and so like blending those things together. I would also say like it's personal and it's brand, so it's like trying to have a message that is personal to you, unique to you, but also isn't always selling. And then of course you do have to bring in the selling side too. So it's like finding that key balance between the two. Um, And yeah, I think if it's coming from something deeper than selling, whether it's your values of humor, even is a value, you know, if your value is, you know, showing how intense you are of a teacher, maybe it's a lot of, you know, teaching unique little snippets of a flow. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I mean, I don't think there's any really wrong way other than just, yeah, trying to imitate someone that you're not. Um, for you, Allison, how important is consistency when creating a personal brand?
Um, I think that consistency for creating a personal brand is going to be different for everybody because how do you create and share your personal brand or identity as a yoga teacher type thing? It's going to be showing up in person, it's going to be your teaching style, it's going to be on social media if you like, but one is not more important than the other, I would say. I know so many great yoga teachers who don't use social media.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know so many great yoga teachers who do use social media. And I think that your personal brand is either the way you show up on social media and invite people to your class, or it's the way you show up for your students when you teach a class, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that if you're going to show up to teach a class or you're going to show up on social media, being consistent in who you are as a teacher is a great idea, but
Mm-hmm.
also you can change,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah, I think not being too rigid with it, of
yeah, that's,
like, you know, if you want to try something new, I definitely have not landed on a personal brand. I don't feel like, yeah, I'm always trying different things
yeah,
of, okay, I'm going to time lapse me doing a slow flow, or then I'm going to go strike some poses out on the beach or whatever it may be. Like it's, and
yeah.
that's fine. Like I'm sure there is benefit to if you do come up with like, okay, this is my schedule or my consistent path that has been working and you
Hmm.
continue with that, that makes sense. But when we're starting out, you know,
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to change is okay and good.
Yeah. And how did you feel like when you first kind of put yourself out there as like a yoga teacher on social media as your personal, like kind of building a personal brand for the first time? Because I know that we talked, you mentioned social media handles, so I'm going to go back to this a couple times because I think that is kind of how we create our brands, if you will, for those that do use social media. And we talk about this in YTT a lot too, as having like a way to develop your marketing as a yoga teacher separate from your personal life. And
Mm-hmm.
you have a personal Instagram and a yoga
Yeah.
Instagram. I have one blended
Yeah.
one. So how did it feel? Like were you hesitant to create a yoga social media or were you excited to create it? Did it feel weird at first?
It
Did it come
definitely
naturally to
it
you?
definitely felt weird, and because like my social media is private,
Mm-hmm.
so to have a public one, it was important to me because I wanted to have some privacy, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's good and normal for some people who are like I just have way too long of a history on Instagram to like just wildly have everything. I don't even know what's on there anymore, right? But it so it did feel weird to be putting myself out there, and also it's trial and error too.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure even now it's not even been a year. I'd go back and look at some of the first posts and be like, what was I doing? You know, and that's okay. I think too, like whenever I was selecting an Instagram handle, that changed over time as well because I started with like yogi.jimmy or the vice versa. I don't know. And then I landed on yogi.jimmy. But then also I tried to change it again. And then because like I'm a realtor as well. So I was going to do like yogi realtor or something like that. And then you learn like, no, that's a trademark name. You can't
Mhm.
use it in that way. So there are things where you can go wrong. And I did.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, you learn it pretty quickly of what you don't want to be stepping on other people's trademarks, so you
It's
gotta
true.
watch out for that.
Yeah, because you want to catch it before they do.
Yeah.
You want
Before
to
you,
not accidentally step on somebody's trademark before they're like, hey, by the way.
right.
Yeah.
You don't want to be improperly using anything. But it is weird, and I think too, people, if you prioritize privacy, maybe you just don't do social media, or yeah, you take the option of you have a separate one that's geared towards just that. But it can be hard because people, the algorithm, I feel like, likes personal content and knows somehow the difference maybe in between something that's more geared towards selling versus something that's just a fun personal bit.
It's always changing. But
Yeah.
before we dive a little bit more into social media, what would you say to teachers who feel hesitant to stand out or worry that their unique style won't attract students?
I have the same hesitation, but I have to remind myself that I think that's wrong. Like, that's a wrong hesitation because if it's quirky, it's fun, it's going to catch people's attention, but also it's truer to you. Um, there's, you know, so many people posting all the time on social media. And so, yeah, it takes something unique to make a splash, but also it's not really even about that. It's just about you finding the people that will automatically gravitate towards you once they know you're there. So making it unique is a great asset, really. And then, yeah, just trying to let go of the fear a bit of judgment of other people for being quirky, fun, cute, unusual, whatever, like words you think your mind is telling you that you are. It's all okay. But in a more kind of direct way, Allison, what do you think about using social media as a tool when expressing your own brand? Like, what aspects or tips might you have for someone?
I think social media is a wonderful tool, and I know that can be a little controversial because social media has a good and a bad rep, right? But I tend to not find myself doom scrolling on social media. And I usually like to post something and then set it and forget it type thing. So I love social media, and I love how it can be used to kind of introduce yourself or show your values or show the things that you like without meeting somebody in person first. And it does help to kind of attract students to your class. But it takes a lot of mental capacity, a lot of work. Like, editing isn't easy because, let's be honest, we're all posting things that look perfect type thing. So we're showing highlights on social media. We're showing the one time that we did something that was really great and we look our happiest and our best. You know what I mean? And that can take a lot of time, and you also have to like take the time to get the content. And sometimes I'm like, man, I just want to go watch the sunset. Like, I don't want to go watch the sunset in my yoga clothes and record 27 attempts at me doing one yoga pose until it looks exactly how I wanted it. But I think that just like give yourself some grace is like my big thing right now when you're doing social media. If you are somebody that likes to post, if you're somebody that doesn't like to post, just try it and see what happens, and try not to take things personal. It doesn't have to be perfect. I love the trends right now that are on Instagram that's like Instagram versus reality. And it's like, here's my perfect shot versus here's the many failed attempts that I had to go through to get me there. And those are really fun. And I think that when I struggle with social media sometimes when I'm like, I don't know what to post, or I don't know how to be perfect, or this isn't fitting in the schedule that I created in my head. And I'm like, if it's something I want to share, I just share it. And the cool thing is you can delete anything you don't want to keep up there, right? So if you post something and you're like, actually, I think not, you can take it down. You can clean up your feed whenever you want to. And that's great too, right?
Yeah, I think avoiding that pressure of perfection.
Yeah.
And then also having that boundary too, just enjoying the sunset.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Those are really important things because it doesn't need to rule our lives.
Yeah.
You know?
And I like to use social media a lot for inspiration over comparison.
Yeah.
So I like to get on there and be like, what am I inspired to do? What am I inspired to try? What am I inspired to, like, what colors am I inspired to use type thing? Versus being like, oh, look at how much better this person's back bend is than mine. Like, that's not um, currently how I use it. So that took a lot of mental training because it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of comparison. But and like we were talking about earlier, I have like a blended social media, and I do that. I go back and forth because I'm like, none of my friends and family from 20 years ago want to see me just doing yoga poses all the time. I don't need to post this. I should post a picture of my kids or something. But then also, I'm like, yoga is kind of my whole personality and my whole life at this point. So I'm like, if we're doing yoga, we're doing yoga. If I'm telling you about my class, I'm telling you about my class. If I'm posting a picture of my family, I love it. I love meeting students who are like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that you had kids, or I didn't know that like you had a family, or whatever it is. And that's always fun to talk about too, because
Yeah.
it makes you a little bit more personable because you're a real life person
Yeah.
teaching real life people how to do yoga.
Sure.
So I don't know if I kind of went down the social media personal brand rabbit hole here.
But I like too that you talk about what you're consuming on your social media, like just scrolling, not when you're posting. Because I do get inspired too that way. For me, it's most of my saved reels are really fun flows that I'm like, oh man, that's like so innovative or creative.
Yeah.
Or just things that it's not even a flow, it's just like a set of like 3 different stretches or movements that, target a specific part of the body. And sometimes it's good to implement in my class. Sometimes it's just for me, like it's not
Yes.
a flowy thing and it's just helps my body feel good and recover. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of different ways to use it that can be helpful on both sides.
Yeah, and also like now these accounts with like faceless accounts are great too, where instead of maybe you're creating a personal brand, you don't ever have to show your face. You can just be like, hey, class with Jimmy today, and it's just a little square flyer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can also create a brand without putting yourself in front of millions of people if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Which is a nice tool too. Can you share a moment when your brand came through in an unexpected way? Either in class or online?
Well, I think I got like 2 little stories, I guess. One is whenever Taylor Swift's Florida song came out, I was like, first of all, cracking up.
The big deal if
like
you're Destin.
cackling. Yeah, Destin, Florida, timeshare in Destin, Florida. Oh my god. I was just cracking up for like 30 minutes, laughing at like, this is so weird and surreal that we're being mentioned in a Taylor Swift song. But I was like, I gotta get on this. I'm gonna post something about it like right now. And I think that's still like one of my most viewed reels because,
Because it was hot at the time.
yeah, and sometimes like just riding a trend, why not? Did I get followers from it? Probably like 3. I don't know, but like it was fun to embrace that fun little trend. I think too another way and that you can expand your reach is doing something different, like hosting classes at a local business and doing a partnership to where y'all are collaborating on posts can help to get more people who live in your community but maybe don't know about you or don't necessarily know if they want to enjoy or will enjoy yoga, but that can expand your reach. So we now do a yoga class every week at East Pass Coffee Company. So getting that kind of a collaboration with like a brewery or whatever it may be. Maybe it's like your local tourism board, like go teach a class there. That would be getting some people to see your posts more. But ultimately there's just like I don't think there's really any wrong way to go about it. Like collaborate, do something unique to you, try to convey your values or just your quirkiness, and people come to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice where, I mean, you can really take your personal brand and decide if you want to focus in on like one tiny aspect of it or like a big overarching theme too, right? I was just thinking about like we live in Destin. And I was like, oh, I mean, if you are going to personal brand yourself as being like a beach yogi, like you're probably going to post most things about like the beach and teaching at the beach and doing things like that, or teaching outside and being outside. If you're going to take it to like, oh, I'm a meditation teacher, you're probably going to brand yourself around like meditation scripts and like
Mm-hmm.
different meditation techniques and things like that. But you can also just be a generalized yoga teacher where you're like, hey, I'm active in the community and I love collaborating with people, and this is where you can find me, all the places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nice too. So you can really take it in so many different ways.
Yeah.
I think we tend to overthink things a little bit and think that, everything has to be perfect, like we were talking
Yeah.
about, but it doesn't. So, building a personal brand, I mean, it's really about being yourself and letting that shine through in all areas of your teaching and communication. It's a journey, but one that helps you connect with your students in a meaningful way. So, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we're tackling the topic of managing student challenges in class. We'll be sharing stories and tips on how to support students when things aren't going smoothly. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Until then, take care of yourselves, take deep breaths, and don't forget to talk yoga to me again soon. Bye.
Bye.